right. Hello, everybody. Happy Saturday afternoon. I'm Melissa Mays, and you're here with Community Updates. We're having technical issues, technical difficulties, and the computer's not wanting to do, anything. So Mickey's trying his hardest to make this work. So here we are. I just want to say thank you all for joining in, and sorry that we are running late today. But if you know anything about me, I run late all the time, and so this, not by choice, it happens. You know. But yeah, so today we're going to talk about a few things. I'm going to give a few minutes for people to come in and to share, and yeah, so I've asked some questions. Let's see. Okay. So yeah, we are getting ready to launch. Sorry, everybody, about this. This is, one of these things out of our control. It's in Microsoft's hands at this point. And let's see. Here we go. All right. So we've shared it. We are live now. I see that we're still on. It's better than last week, as we were kicked off of Facebook in about 30 seconds. So, yep. Hi, Derek. Thanks for coming on. Mickey is trying to work a miracle right now. We're having, so it's not going to have all the fancy good stuff because it's me today at the helm here, and know what I'm doing. So Mickey's the tech genius. I am not. But yeah, so sorry that we're running late, and we're gonna move forward though, because tech problems, all that stuff, nothing can stop us, right? So we say. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. Hopefully people can hop in and catch up, and we're gonna see what we're going here. So I'm going to try to watch comments, and all right. So so we're live, and it's Saturday, August 19th, and we're going to do some updates. Derek, can you hear me okay? Should I move anything? You're going to be my tech guide for a moment. So I just want to make sure that you can hear me, and that, I'm loud, so it shouldn't be a problem, but I just want to make sure. Let's see. Let me know. This is why Melissa doesn't do these things by herself. Not a tech person. But anyway, so we're going to go. If you can't hear me, or if you have questions, let me know. Okay, thank you. That's super helpful. Let's see. I'm going to post the information in here that I usually do. And all right. Actually, that is not... Actually, it's day number 34. Thank you. I am quite loud. Let's see. Everything that sounds good on YouTube. Thank you, Adam. Yeah, it is. Windows 11 kind of wiped out some drivers and not connecting the camera or anything else. So I'm doing this, and he's working his magic. Okay. Let's see. It is day number, 3,403 in the ongoing Flint water crisis. Okay. So we're going to roll with it. And here we go. Okay. I just saw my comment. That's weird. All right. 3,403. All right. Well, thank you for joining. Sorry about the tech delays. We are... I don't know what I'm doing, but dealing with fighting against Microsoft and the updates. And then also just going through, I don't know if y'all were watching Tanya, Councilwoman Burns' show a few minutes ago, just dealing with the shock. It's probably what did it. The shock of how people can accept gifts and violate the city charter and not see repercussions. I think we're seeing, that's my opinion, I think we're seeing too much of that nowadays, is that folks who are elected officials, or those who are in power, or those who are wealthy, don't see the same types of consequences that us regular folk would. And that's the opposite. It should be that elected officials are held to a higher standard because they are elected, they run and are elected on the platform of, we're going to protect your rights, we're going to protect you, we're going to fight for our constituents. I mean, that's what they say anyways, right? But yet here we have people getting new lawnmowers and money for parties and payments and, funding their own personal nonprofits. And then, taking gifts from people who are trying to do business with the city. And then, of course, there's no way to say that those gifts didn't result in a new $72 million contract for Ashley Capital. So, yeah, I mean, it's just common sense that, that's ethically wrong, morally wrong, not that that matters. As Claire McClinton said, they're morally impaired. And so, yeah, but that's honestly, that is a lot of the problems we're facing in our country nowadays, is that for some reason we held up politicians and wealthy folks, billionaires, like they're some kind of superstars, right? Like we treat them like our favorite musicians and actors, and we look up to them. And yeah, it's straight corruption. And the thing is that when there's straight corruption, there doesn't seem to be accountability. And that is a word that some of us really hate because we keep hearing transparency and accountability and all this stuff, but yet they don't follow it. The very people who talk about this usually aren't the ones that are doing it. They're, making these decisions for themselves, or not doing it for their voters or for their constituents or the city themselves. And that's the whole reason why we vote, right? Is to get out people who aren't doing their jobs that they promised, and to get people in who will do what's right by us. So that's something right there that we need to focus on. And we need to remember, and I know that people have friends that ran for office, and there's people that they've seen on TV and all this stuff, but you really need to look at what these folks have done and what they're doing. And also, we're going to do, since it's weird today, we're going to do story time with Melissa Mays. So we're going to talk about some really important safety information, and then we're going to do story time that talks about the amazing power of the people. Again, welcome. This is Community Updates with myself, Melissa Mays. I can't even say my own name right. Melissa Mays, Flint resident. I run What Are You Fighting For? Founded in January of 2015 because of the misinformation with the ongoing Flint water crisis that is currently in day 3,403. So over 9.5 years about here where we're at. And I'm able to do this thanks to the graciousness of Mickey Jordan and 810 News Media Group, which is a media channel for Flint residents by Flint residents. And nobody's paid, so you don't have to worry about things like that. We're just honest, spending our time talking with our fellow residents in Flint and beyond to talk about updates, what's happening in Flint, what needs to happen in Flint, and how you need to protect yourself. Because again, there's a lot of misinformation being given out by the powers that be that, hi, Elena, that we need to air out. We need to air out. So right now we're going to go through a couple of safety updates, and then we're going to have story time with Melissa Mays. Which is what everybody tunes in for, right? Okay. So first of all, the mayor has said he's met all the obligations and everything. And I'm going to tell you, honestly, I'm not sure how that's possible, as the mayor has not attended any of our status meetings or gone to court since he took office at the end of 2019. The previous administration did show up. So I'm not sure if he's even aware of what the requirements are, because if he was, then he would be pushing the city and himself and his administration to actually satisfy what the judge has been saying. So yes, we filed to have the judge hold the mayor and the city administration in contempt of court for violating the federal judge's orders back in February. He made it very clear about the dates. The dates were to have all inspections completed, done, and photographs taken of the homes that they think need restoration or they think were done by May 1st. And the intense, the intense actual inspections didn't even really get going until mid-May. So that came out in court, which is great. And then all excavations, so basically digging up all the service lines, the people that will qualify for a service line, which is Flint residents that had an active water account on or before March 28th, 2017, and that they signed they call it opt-in letter, which is not just the consent. Oh, what did I do? The consent form. Look, sun came out. We're just gonna do. Okay, look, I'm a ghost. So here we are. So the sun just came out where we're at. But we're going to. I'm sorry, I'm laughing. I'm so immature sometimes. But so the information is my folder. So the information is. Oh, there we go. There we go. Look, this is why I don't do this between us. Don't tell Mickey how bad of a job I'm doing. All right. We just keep that quiet. So basically that all excavations that for people that qualify, which was very simple. It's, Flint resident, Flint address, active water account on or by or before March 28th, 2017, and that they signed the consent form to allow the work to be done. And as long as that's all turned in, you qualify. That's it. Your water bill does not have to be at zero, and nobody cares what's going on in your basement, because a lot of people, and this was so long ago. We settled this in 2017. People were worried about growing medicinal marijuana, caregivers, things like that. They were worried about growing that in their basement and getting, in trouble for it or anything like that. And of course, now that that's legal, and also these crews don't care. These crews don't care. So as long as they can get to, and the reason why they need to come in your basement is they're going to check at the curb to see what the city side is, and then what the resident side, so what the home side is, because they can be two different materials, and most of the time are. And then they need to go check in the basement, because they used to do, back in the day, they used to do partial service line replacements, so they'd only do half or a portion of the resident side to save money, because it's very expensive to have done. And so we want to make sure there's no partial service line replacements, because that can make, when you connect like a new copper line to a lead one, it actually creates an electrical charge, and it can actually release more lead. So you don't want that. Okay. So they got to go in your basement and check. Plus they need to check for leaks if it's replaced. So then what happens is they, are going to dig at the curb, identify the material of the city side and the resident side, check at your where it goes into your water meter, and then if it is lead or galvanized steel, they replace it at no cost to you. At no cost to the resident. And then they're supposed to give you new filters and flush. After they've done the replacement, they're supposed to flush the line for 15 minutes. That's for anything that got shook up during the construction. And then you're supposed to use filters or bottled water, but you're supposed to use filters for at least a year after the last service line in town is replaced, because they're all connected, right? Even if you live across the street from construction, they're all connected. It's all one water system. So if it gets shaken up, it's going to release the contaminants that have built up in the pipes. So anyway, so there's that. It's supposed to be done free. And then they're supposed to come behind that and restore your property. And so excavations were due to be done completely by August 1st. But as we've heard repeatedly, we still have residents reaching out saying, hey, I turned in my consent form, but nobody's come out. Nobody's called me to make an appointment, and they're supposed to call. They're supposed to knock on your door. They're supposed to send a letter. But, we need to make sure they're actually doing those things, because then when we go knock on doors, we're finding out that they've heard from no one. So, again, I tell everybody, please make sure you call if your service line has not been excavated. They have not dug a hole, and they have not checked your service line. They've not replaced your service line. If it's lead and galvanized or galvanized steel, then you need to call the row and the city, and it's 810-410-1133. Or you can email gettheleadout@cityofflint.com, but also copy the attorneys at the Natural Resource Defense Council, and that's at flintpiperemoval@gmail.com. So that's their email where they're collecting addresses. Also on Facebook, if you go to Flint Rising, there is a pinned post where you can enter your information. Sun came out again. You can enter your information, and you can tell us and let us know how the process has gone. So even if you've had it done, we still want to know if it's been done right and all steps were done. And what we continue to hear from the city is that, well, the residents aren't doing their part. Aside from digging the holes, they continue to blame the residents, because it's blaming the victims, because again, we didn't do this to ourselves. We didn't do this to our pipes. But it's a way for them to say, well, the residents just aren't cooperative. Okay. Yeah. Right. So also a lot of times the residents are not made aware. We have people that are new and buying homes in Flint, and Oh, this is a great question. So, is this what we doing? Asked. But do they replace water heaters, which could have lead sediments? They absolutely could, and they could also be growing bacteria. They should. Well, they're not doing it in the lawsuit because this lawsuit is a Safe Drinking Water Act enforcement lawsuit, and unfortunately, the outdated Safe Drinking Water Act does not cover interior plumbing. Through me arguing about us not owning the water meters, that's the only reason we got them to replace our side for free. So it just happened to be, I asked them, I said, are those water meters ours? Do they belong to us? Can I just pack it up and take it with me? And they said, no. I said, then if we don't own the water meter, then we don't own anything that connects to it. So the judge agreed, and we were able to get that in. Unfortunately, this is why we all need to fight for an updated Lead and Copper and Safe Drinking Water Act to cover interior plumbing. The distribution mains that deliver the water to your service line aren't even covered by this law. So we got work to do, and we've been working on it. So yeah, and there have been programs through G Card where you can get your water heaters replaced. If there's leaks, there's a program called WRAP that can actually put money towards fixing leaks, and in your water heaters and your pipes and things like that. You can get that inspected. So that's more information that we can give as well. But yeah, that's another thing too, is that water heaters, you should have a plumber flush them, or you should just be careful. And that's the thing, is that at the end of the day, until all of the infrastructure, meaning the distribution mains that leave the water treatment plant and take it to our service lines, the service lines, and then the interior plumbing that connects to the service lines inside our homes, the fixtures, the water heaters, the dishwashers, the washing machines, the faucets, the taps, until all of that is replaced, there's no way to guarantee whatsoever that this water is going to be safe, because there's sediment and corrosion and corroded pipes and plumbing and fixtures that contain lead and other harmful chemicals, even iron corrosion, because iron corrosion is what turns the water yellow and orange and things like that, and the brown that we saw. And that's not super harmful in and of itself, but corrosion doesn't usually travel alone. It's not usually just one. So it's the things you cannot see, like the bacteria and the lead that has no color, taste, or odor, that also feed off of the bacteria. Like Legionella feeds off of iron corrosion, and there's bacteria feeds off copper corrosion. So as long as our water is corroded or corrosive, as long as our water is corrosive, which is what's happening right now, since this mayor decided to blend two water sources and do an experiment, which has not turned out well, because our overall lead levels jumped as well. And then, of course, it fluctuates and all that because of all the rupturing mains. There's no way to keep our water stabilized because our infrastructure is unstable. So as long as we have line leaks and mains ruptures and interior plumbing going bad, the water's not going to be stable and safe. So anybody that tells you the water is safe, blah, 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 no, they're lying, because there's no way they can actually do that. Tom. Hi, Tom. No, welcome. We're having technical difficulties. That's why I'm by myself today for a minute. Mickey's trying to work his technical magic. And so, no, the judge has not ruled yet. I don't know if he was waiting to see if the city was going to miss their August 1st deadline as well, but we're waiting to see if Judge Lawson, federal judge, is going to rule to hold the city in contempt of court, because they missed their May 1st deadline. And what they would have to do is the mayor could have shown up to court and said, hey, no, we've tried our best. We've done all of our best efforts. But that didn't happen. And he didn't show up, and he's not said anything. He's just saying we're done, but they're not. They weren't. They were still doing inspections. They ended up finishing inspections and found that there were a lot more homes that weren't done than they had thought. They thought they were almost done with restoration, and then it came out to be like 5,000 homes still weren't done. And mind you, the bulk of the holes, the bulk of the homes that were done by the end of 2019. It was like 27,000 were done, and then they've done about 2,000 since 2019. When this new administration took over, because in early 2020, the mayor shut down the program. I don't know why restoration was shut down because of COVID, because you don't have to go indoors to do property restoration unless damage was done to the basement or the home. But usually it's just yards, sidewalks, and streets. And so I don't know why COVID would shut that down, because they were outside. But okay. So we gave them, 6 months to get a plan together, of a delay, but then they didn't come back with a plan. 2021, they did nothing. There was no service lines or restoration done. And nothing was done in 2022 until after Labor Day, when we had said, okay, we got to take you back to court because you're once again in violation. And once again, the city had picked their end date. They said, hey, we can have this done by this date, and we're going to go to court and agree on it. So we did, agree that they would be done by September 1st of 2022. And they hadn't even started digging until after Labor Day, which was in September. And that's because we had gone to them and said, okay, we got to take you to court. Because, and any of the excuses, no labor, no parts, this and that. Well, we've also helped over in Benton Harbor. So we knew for a fact there were materials and there were work, was work being done. And it was happening over in Benton Harbor that got done in a year. So what country am I in? Wentis? Yeah, I don't know anymore. I don't know. There are third world countries that are getting better treatment than us. And because we should do better. We should know better. We should be better. So yeah, so basically nothing was done. And so here we are 3 years. And the thing is that 2020 was the end date. That was the scheduled end date. That's a fly. The scheduled end date for the program for all the pipes to be replaced and all of the properties to be restored was 2020. Now, again, we had delays at the beginning because nobody had ever done this before. So we made history because, we Flint, and that's what we do. We make history, right? So we won this lawsuit where we sued the government and we forced the city to replace all of the service lines to come in compliance with the Lead and Copper Rule and Safe Drinking Water Act at no cost to us because we got the state to pay for all of it. We got the water pods, the points of distribution sites extended and pushed back, even though the state didn't want that and fought us really hard on that. It was very brutal. It was easier to get the $97 million for the pipes than it was to get the pods taken out longer. We got the CORE program started, which was the community outreach and education program. We got filters and all that stuff paid for by the state. The water test kits, which are still available, by the way. The filters and the water test kits are available down at City Hall. I'd say between 9 and 4 for free. You get 2 test kits every 6 months. So 4 per year, per address, every 6 months for free until a year past the last pipe being replaced. And then you also get the filters until 1 year past the last pipe being replaced, which at this point, who knows when that's going to be. Now you can, I'm getting out my stack of papers. Now you can go to City Hall to get it, but if you do not have transportation, you can call the Flint Public Health Navigators at 810-410-2020. And I put the numbers in the comments if you can hopefully see them, and then I'll repost it too. That to have the Flint Public Health Navigators deliver one to you. Say, I don't have transportation or I work between these hours. Can you deliver and drop this off? And then you can test your water. Now, keep in mind, a water test is only a snapshot in time, and you've got to do it properly. And of course, it is going to the state to be tested. But in case you're wondering, the proper way to test is no pre-flushing, no running your water before you go to bed, no. What you do is you go like you would normally, right? And you go to bed or you go to work and you let that water sit stagnant for 6 to 8 hours. Now, if you got kids in the house or if you use the restroom in the middle of the night, absolutely shut the water off. You can actually shut the toilet off if you need to. That's what we had to do with kids because, you get up in the middle of the night, you flush the toilet, and I would actually prefer that because I have sons, so I don't want to see unflushed in the morning. Please don't do that. So I turn it off so that way the water can still flush out the tank without running it, letting it move. You let it sit stagnant 6 to 8 hours or longer overnight like you normally would. And then you would absolutely blast the water when you fill up those 2 bottles in the morning. And you can use your bathroom tap like you would to brush your teeth, or you can use your kitchen tap. Make sure there's no filter on it. You then make sure you push the filter off to the side, turn it off, whatever you do, no filter, okay? And then you fill those bottles up and you fill the piece of paper out and you have it taken back. But you do not run your water before you test the water, okay? Because that's what the state has been doing. And we've caught them. I mean, we caught them back in 2015. So this will go into my story time with Melissa Mays here in a little bit about how we caught that, okay? So now, flushing can be helpful in the case of bacteria, which they're not doing bacterial testing in the homes of residents, which is so they can say, well, we have not found bacteria. However, there's people going to the hospital with Legionnaire's disease, which is a form of bacterial pneumonia, which Legionella, the bacteria that causes Legionnaire's, feeds off of iron corrosion. And guess what we have when you have corrosive water and you don't have enough chlorine and you don't have enough pressure? Everybody else still have low pressure in Flint because that our water tower has been shut down for maintenance. And the areas where they're not running the hydrants, the water's sitting stagnant, especially if there's empty lots and homes not being used in your neighborhood, blighted homes, empty homes, homes for sale. Also, it's hot and we have main breaks happening consistently and constantly. So the good chlorine is being used up or just spurted out into the street that we're paying for. Isn't that great, everybody? And that leaves it open to growing bacteria like Legionnaires, like Legionella. So the problem with that is that you do need to flush. So if you're not testing in the morning when you get up, or if your water sat during the day, and if you're using filters, tap filters, the one that's you need to flush. You need to run cold water through that filter. Don't ever run hot water through your tap filter. And you need to flush that out for a couple minutes. Okay. So any bacteria that's grown on your filters, if you've been gone on vacation or gone for a week, just change your filter. Please just change your filter. Okay. Because the material that's inside these tap filters, and again, these tap filters were made for aesthetics, like how it looks and tastes to remove some of the chlorine taste and all that. They were not made to save our lives and protect public health. That's not. It's just they're trying to do that now because we've failed as a country to, I don't know, protect our infrastructure and replace pipes, like because they're in the ground, I guess. So out of sight, out of mind. But again, going back to Flint making history, we got people to wake up and be like, oh, hey, the water might be bad because these pipes are really old and we're cutting corners with water treatment. We're using chloramines. We're not using enough chlorine. We're trying to cheat on tests. So that's causing harm. It's fluctuating and causing harm. Of course it is. And they'll tell you, oh, the water quality at the plant is great. Who cares? I mean, great, good. That's bare minimum. It's like, yo, you put pants on today. Good for you. What matters is the water that's coming through these taps in people's homes, healthcare facilities, schools, all that stuff. So they're not testing that now, are they? No. So with bacteria, even through your shower, please run your either super hot or super cold or both. Flush that water. Flush that water through. Okay. If you've been gone for an amount of time, please also see a plumber to flush out. Don't do it yourself, please. To empty your water tank, your hot water tank, or run it through. Run it through. You need that stagnant water to move to get the bacteria through. Now, who's paying for this extra water we have to flush because it's garbage and possibly harmful? Us, of course. So that's a whole other thing about fighting back. Now, that's important, so please do that because we are having Legionnaires issues, especially when it's hot, water's sitting stagnant, and we're losing our good chlorine that we need to kill that bacteria out into the streets with all these main breaks, okay? So now we're going to talk about story time with Melissa Mays, and maybe I'll come up with some music or something cute or whatever, or get like a sweater and stuff, and we're going to talk to Grandma Mays here about history. The media has somewhat whitewashed quite a bit what happened with the Flint water crisis. They always want to say that, you know, our water was switched as a cost-cutting measure because Flint was so broke on April 25th, 2014. No, sirs and ma'ams and folks. That is not it. That is not it. Basically, they've been trying since the 60s to put in a privatized pipeline so they can make blue money, you know, because water is the new gold. And they want to be able to sell untreated water to factories and businesses who don't want to spend the money because, you know, the wealthy are just so put out in this country. They don't want to spend the money to remove the treatment chemicals that would make it safe for human consumption and our pets. Don't forget about your pets. And so they built this pipeline. We got approved for $300 million because of a fraudulent, fake environmental emergency. Where are the criminal charges, you ask? Well, ask our attorney general who got them thrown in the garbage. But these folks, in my opinion, it was a crime. Again, I say my opinion a lot because I don't want to get anybody else in trouble. And don't blame Mickey for this. And so they did it to make money. And they said that and our current mayor was sitting on city council at this time when they voted to go to this, there was a Karagandhi Water Authority at the time, but that's got some stink on it now, the KWA, the name. So they're calling it GCDC, or Genesee County Drain Commissioner Water. And so Flint was paying for a bulk of the construction, and yet we didn't have a bulk of the ownership. In fact, if we didn't pay the bonds, if we were late on the bonds, then Genesee County could absorb us, take over our power, and actually put a lien on all of our homes until they got that bond payment back. Because again, at the end of the day, paying them bonds and making sure Wall Street has money is the most important thing. So profit over people is the problem. So we stumbled upon this as an accident. Okay, that they switched the water for this privatized pipeline, so the wealthy could make more money because obviously they just don't have enough, and the banks financed it and all that great stuff. That's why there were RICO charges, by the way, that went away when we got a new attorney general in place against Snyder and everything, because this was a criminal organization and people were harmed and people made money from it. Okay, Anthony Miller. Hi, Melissa. I've been trying to get in contact with you. I live in Germany now. Was a maintenance man in 2004. Oh, hey. All right. I don't know if we're friends on Facebook at all, or yeah, but I'll get you my information. Okay, we'll talk, because that'd be interesting to know. So basically, and so then they had decided to do this environmental emergency. So then no, Detroit did not cut us off. That was a big thing, saying, oh, well, Detroit abandoned Flint. Flint had no recourse but to go to the Flint River. No, the Carigandi Water Authority, which our current mayor voted to go to switch to this privatized pipeline. And again, when something's more privatized, it's less liable to these laws that would control and directly impact municipal systems. Okay, so basically, when you're a private company, just look at Twitter or X or whatever it is. Once it becomes private and not public or municipal, there's a lot of things they can get away with. There you go. So basically, they went to switches, and the pipeline wasn't done by the time that we had ended the contract with Detroit. So they said, oh, well, like a year and a half until the construction's done. Let's go ahead and put these Flint folks, not the rest of the county, by the way, that was going to the KWA, not anybody else, just Flint, onto the Flint River. Great. Now, here's the interesting thing. I love how the son's like, well, let's show this out. Look. So with this interesting thing, I'm sorry, everybody. My goodness. Okay, we're just leaving it. I'm just going to glow. So with this interesting thing, I am watching my mouth here. The powers that be decided. Now, I will tell you that our city council did not vote to go to Flint River. Okay, they voted to go to the KWA, which was supposed to be done by 2014. But there were delays, and the Carigandi Water Authority was actually trying to barrel through protected lands, wildlife, wetland lands, and that's a whole bunch of mess. The bearded clams, which makes me miss Tony Palladino so much. But we laughed about that quite a bit. So they went ahead and were barreling through protected wetlands. And then, of course, taking people's homes. As this pipeline, this several $100 million pipeline was cutting through parallel to our Detroit line, which again, Detroit they pull the water in at the source at Lake Huron, and they have one of the best water treatment plants in the country, and they treat it there, and they send clean treated water to the communities that they serve. Well, with the Carigandi Water Authority, there's no plant there. They just pull the water in an uncovered basin, so that way if there's junk floating in Lake Huron where people do tourism stuff and wet water sports and things, it's not covered, and it's trucked along 60-70 miles untreated. So they're just pulling raw water in, and they're not treating it until it gets to our water treatment plant, which the former director of the EPA said nothing should be treated there. We didn't have the equipment to put in corrosion control to protect the pipes from the water or the water from the pipes. They were actually dumping chemicals in the floor and holes in the floor, which is insane. And they did not have the staff. They did not have, and yes, our water treatment plant supervisors told the state, we've been a backup just in case there was another blackout, just a backup for 50 years, because we didn't have the treatment plant. They said they were going to put updates into the water treatment plant. Didn't happen. Not enough to make it safe for folks. And so there were people at the water treatment plant that quit. They're like, I'm not going to be around to poison my family. And they told them, they put in writing that the plant's not ready. But the state's like, hey, we took over. Because again, in 2012, the former Governor Snyder took over the city of Flint, made all the decisions for us, and gave us an unelected appointed emergency manager. So we didn't have a say for nothing. Now, our current mayor, when he was on city council, said, okay, well, the Carigandi Water Authority, that pipeline, it wasn't built big enough to sell the water to all of the factories that wanted untreated raw water and the residents of Flint. So let's build a Y pipe at the water treatment plant and blend in Flint River. So that's what they were testing to see. Can we blend in the Flint River with this Karagandhi Water Authority. This blending scam was former city councilman Sheldon Neely and now current mayor Sheldon Neely's thing. That was his thing, was to blend the water. Okay, so great. And he actually did a video talking about what a great asset the Flint River is and our outdated water treatment plant, which has since been removed from YouTube. But because it didn't age well. Didn't age well, right? So again, here we go. So we lost our democracy. We didn't have a say. They started making all these decisions for profit. People were trying to fight the emergency manager law. They were trying to fight against the KWA, but yet they're trying to say, oh, we need this as an asset. We need our own water treatment plant. We need control of our own stuff. Not if you don't have the people to run it, and not if you don't have the type of water treatment plant to run it. And what's interesting is that Genesee County, they don't have to use Flint's water treatment plant. Only Flint. They got a brand new one. They got money to put a brand new bad boy in there. Well, how come those folks got better than us when we're the ones that put forth the bulk of the money, right? Anyway, so all that's happening. And it seems like a big, huge, giant thing that you can't stop. And a lot of times you'll feel this way. So residents were already out marching about the widespread shutoffs. You know, if you want to get rid of people, shut their water off, and then you can condemn their homes, you cap their sewers, and then you can also up their rates so high that they lose their homes in tax foreclosures, because in Michigan, we have this absolutely inhumane law where you can take unpaid water bills and tack them onto property taxes, even if the home's already paid off. If you can't pay those thousands of dollars, guess what? Somebody else can scoop in and snatch up your home, and then they can demolish it, they can buy it, they can rent out, whatever. But you get run out of town. Attorney Val Washington was representing, I think, 16,000 homeowners, because we had a homeowner problem in Flint too. We got a lot of renters, not a lot of homeowners. Well, when you take homes away from 16,000 folks, what do you think is going to happen? And then it shrinks our population to where we fall below 100,000 people, which is marked as a tier 1 city to get federal support and funds. And here we are less than that. Well, if you kill them off, or if you run them out, or you make them sick, you make them run away, or you destroy their homes. Like right now, we're still living in construction at my house because the water ate through pipes in the kitchen and the bathroom and the ceiling, basement, and on our box. I mean, just a whole bunch of things, right? So, yeah, Derek, you're right. Neely said the Flint River was good to cook with and bathe with. He's actually still saying that. He's actually, saying that it's an emotional thing and it's a psychological thing, which of course, yes, it is, because we were poisoned, but also we were lied to from the get. They said that it was safe when in fact they didn't even do any testing to see if it was safe. Just like, in 2021, when they started blending our water, they didn't do any testing first to see what would happen when you blended 2 different sources through our crumbling infrastructure. Shocking, because they seem to think that we are, guinea pigs. And yes, Anthony's right. And housing owners shut the water, and then the city condemned them and everybody got evicted. But also, yeah, they were shutting off water because then these owners weren't paying water bills because they didn't want to pay the repairs. Nobody was helping anybody with the damage caused by this water. And so, yeah, so then we've got our housing, which is typically the low income housing and the people that would have a hard time just picking up and moving anywhere. Hence the question when people ask, why don't you just move? Well, 1, it's kind of expensive. 2, where would I move to? 3, who's going to buy my poison water house? And 4, shut up. So yeah, basically if we move, they win. Now, nothing against anybody who moves. You got to do what's right for you and your family. Okay. Cause it's a lot. We've had a lot of people pass away. A lot of great people die with compromised immune systems, cancers. COVID hit us really hard. We had a 12.5% case fatality rate, highest in the world, until they started changing how they report, because that's how they fix things. Okay. Right. So that aside, so 2014 people were out there marching because of shutoffs and the cost. And then all of a sudden people when they switched, started having brown and orange water. Well, Flint is minority, a black and brown community. What they tried to do is say, well, these black and brown folks are just, thugs wanting something for free. They just want attention or they're illegals. Okay, unless you're 100% indigenous or you were brought over on slave ships and human trafficked here, you illegal. That's just the way it is. Don't call a human being illegal. Just my personal opinion. But yeah. Anyway, a little opinionated. But the thing is that they switched to the river. They switched to the Flint River because the KWA, Genesee County Drain Commission, pipeline was not finished. They're like, well, we don't want to pay. Okay, we're just going to go with it, people. If I'm a ghost, I'm a ghost. So we're just going to go with it. The city of, the residents of Flint, who cares, right? Who cares? Let them drink, let them eat cake, let them drink garbage. The reason we were on Detroit all this time is because General Motors, AC Delco, DuPont, all these companies, all these factories had been dumping into the ground and into the river for decades. And there was actually a $35 million fine for General Motors for, you got Buick City and then you've got Chevy in the Hole for cleanup, EPA fine, right? Somehow this Ashley Capital just got 17 million plus another 72 million to clean up Buick City. That's interesting because it wasn't listed as that before, but that's a whole different story. So then General Motors filed for bankruptcy, and then it went to ownership for Racer Trust, who never cleaned any of that up. Okay, they didn't clean the river. So, and then we've got fracking north by the Holloway Dam and north where the Flint River comes in and stuff. If I had a friend of mine that actually had night vision goggles, and he was trying them out at Stepping Stone Falls, and you could see the oil rainbows on top of the water. Yeah, so there's all kind of mess because we treat our water like garbage in the Great Lakes state. We actually have more injection wells for fracking and dumping fracking waste than any other state in Region 5 of the EPA. So Great Lakes state, my backside. So here we go to 2014. So they, our water treatment plant operators had said no, and the state said, you're doing it anyways because we have control. So Snyder's like, yeah, you going for this because we also need to bankrupt Detroit. And Detroit Water and Sewage Department was the last bastion of their publicly owned asset, right? So in order to get control of Detroit so they can privatize the city, they needed them to file bankruptcy, which is what happened. So they took Flint, their biggest customer, off of Detroit to bankrupt Detroit so then they could be under state control for decades. And then, Flint was rolling right in that direction so they can bankrupt Flint. However, during this time, the water switch went very badly. We failed our first safe drinking water test in May of 2014, so not even a month after we failed our first one for cancer-causing disinfection byproducts or total triethylamines. And the problem is that there was bacteria in the water, fecal, which means poo, coliform, which causes E. coli, and there was in the water, so they were trying to overdose it with chlorine. Well, our system was like, yo, what is this acid? The Flint River was 19 times more corrosive, so more acidic than the Detroit, and then the Detroit water system. But then they also did not have the equipment in the water treatment plant in Flint to add corrosion control, which again would help. But then again, in some ways, we kind of got lucky that way because there was such a sudden shock to the system where it was turning orange and brown and getting people's attention. So people were out there protesting. They're saying, oh, these, crazy black and brown people, they're just making it up. And then women came out. So myself, I got a letter like some people in January of 2015 saying, hey, for the past 9 months, your water's been contaminated by a cancer-causing disinfection byproduct. We didn't have to tell you by law, oh, well, but we are because the state's making us, I guess, right? And this was sent out when our water treatment plant supervisor was out of state. He was on vacation because it was the holidays, and he didn't even know this was happening, and they signed his name to it. So he got slammed into this. And so then people are like, what does this mean? Because the letter said, hey, unless you're swimming in a pool for 60 years. We have data from the 1980s, which I'll let you know. At my age, 1980, the 80s feel like yesterday. Apparently it was not. But they're saying we're going to quote this from the 80s, and we're going to go ahead and use that and say, you'll be fine. But talk to your doctor before consuming the water. So I called my doctor because all of a sudden I'm like, well, you lied. And again, my background is not in any of this. So the whole moral of this whole entire story is that you don't have to have a background in organizing because you can learn. And when your life is on the line and your family's being harmed, you learn quick. And I didn't know anything about science and chemistry. My high school science teacher that hears me talk about water chemistry and everything nowadays laughed and said, told you shouldn't have slept through chemistry class. And he is correct. But you learn when your life is on the line. And so, you learn law, you learn all this stuff. So I've got tidbits of knowledge all in here. So my family was getting sick. My sons were getting sick. My one son's bone, he fell and his wrist buckled. And he drank milk. I'm like, what's going on here? He's a healthy kid. And then my other son got pneumonia in September 2014, which now we found out is probably Legionnaire's. But nobody was telling anybody or telling the doctors to test for it because Legionnaire's disease typically happens in large commercial buildings with commercial air conditioners because water can sit stagnant, right? Or in hot tubs, same reason, because water can sit stagnant and you use the hot tub again and Legionella turns into, it can be inhaled and absorbed through steam, right? And then you breathe it in and it becomes bacteria, a deadly form of bacterial pneumonia. So if anybody's got coughs, phlegms, please go to the doctor. But there are ways to protect against this, and they didn't tell anybody. They covered it up. Snyder even lied. Former Governor Snyder even lied to Congress. Still waiting on Congress to stop caring about somebody's laptop and actually like people who are dying. Like nobody's being murdered by this laptop. Again, I'm sure it's important. And yes, all criminals should be prosecuted. But this dude actually perjured himself and people died. So continuing forward, January 2015, I go to my first protest ever, and I'd never been to a protest, but somebody had posted on Facebook. It was in front of City Hall. So I got to meet some amazing people and ask them, just out of curiosity, hey, what's going on with you? Well, we're losing our hair. We got rashes. We've got respiratory disorders. We've got diseases. We've got something's going on. My bones hurt. All these things. So we started finding out. I'm like, oh my God. They're trying to say it was in they're trying to say it was in one area. Oh, it's just this area. Of course, they're going to downplay everything. What they could have done was say, hey, it's not working out. Flush your lines, get filters, drink bottled water if you're immunocompromised, take care of yourself. We're trying to work this out on our own. But instead they said, no, it's some crazy black and brown people. They don't know what they're talking about. So those poor people want something. And then when people like me started talking, they're like, oh, it's just women. They're just bored housewives. I'm like, look, I got 3 kids, was raising my niece, 4 if you count my husband. I was working very hard, doing a lot, just doing all this stuff. I'm not bored housewives. And then they were trying to say, oh, we put lead in our water. And I'm like, well, where would we get that? And, all the stuff that they try to say. However, when they're trying to call people liars and do all this stuff and say that's misinformation, I don't know if you guys had tuned into Councilwoman Burns' show earlier, but yeah, when the powers that be are sitting here saying misinformation, and it's not things like taking horse medication to save your life, please don't do things that are going to kill you. But when people are holding up pictures of their rashes and their discolored water and their water bills and all that stuff, and when you've got all these people showing this, come on in. And when they're lying about tests and all this stuff. So we started marching, we started meeting, we started talking. And here's the moral of this long story is that we are up against a lot, folks. But in 2014 and 2015, Flint residents stood up. We started talking to each other. We started sharing stories. We started sharing photos. We started going to city council meetings and sharing these stories. We started talking to the media. Anybody that would talk to us, we hopped in front of them. And no, you don't get paid for interviews. So we begged people like, please come talk to us, but don't make us. And I was kind of a gatekeeper for a minute because I said, if you make us look crazy, I will make sure that nobody talks to you. Because we did have media, especially that was, pressured by the city and state at the time to make us look like we were crazy. I actually had local reporters apologize to me in 2015 once we proved there was a widespread lead problem and bacteria and disinfection byproduct, and the city and state were covering it up and the federal government was ignoring us. We proved it. And then they're like, oh, sorry, we made you look crazy. It's just, we were told to. And also, nobody wants to think, oh, hey, the government's hurting us and killing us and doing this on purpose. But hey, when your government is run by corporations and Wall Street, yeah, so when you got people that are getting bought off, like certain members of city council right now, by private companies, they're not your government anymore. They're just paid off soulless folks that don't care about your life and well-being. So they need to go. They need to be removed from office. And this is why, you shouldn't have. And we actually told people, look at what former Governor Snyder did to Flint, Detroit, Benton Harbor, Inkster, the school systems, Highland Park, all of these things by trying to privatize. When you run government like a business, people die. People are, because they look at the car manufacturers before they put in seatbelts. Look at them before they do recalls. Well, if this many people die, then we'll do a recall, right? That's what private companies are allowed to do. When you make government, which is supposed to protect us, work in those same kind of ways, innocent people die and are permanently harmed. So we started marching, protesting, and yes, David and Goliath, if you read the Bible, basically regular people, regular folks started standing together and speaking out, telling their truth, saying, hey, look, this is what my water looks like. This is how my water smells. I started taking bottles of water with me to have people smell my water and see the little floaties in it. And I was like, this was, I videoed it coming out my tab, had to prove it because they were always saying we were making it up and everything. Like we had all this free time just to start writing stories. But what's amazing is that everything was done by people. We reached out to Aaron Brockovich and Lois Gibbs, who she had helped force the government to create the first Superfund site and get an entire city moved because they were living on top of Manhattan Project nuclear waste and it was coming up through their basements and homes and yards and people were dying. So here you go. You've got people dying, and they're like, no. Now, back in the 70s, late 70s, Lois Gibbs had, I'm not going to say kidnapped, but held some EPA reps there until the president, Carter, I believe, had come out to declare it a Superfund site and said they were going to move people. I was told by my attorneys, hey, I know you're working with Lois Gibbs, who is amazing, by the way, and Aaron Brockovich, who is also incredible. But don't be kidnapping EPA reps. That's not going to go well. Plus, at that time, former President Trump would just applaud you because he's trying to get rid of the EPA anyway. So we stood up. We went to the governor's office. We marched. We protested. We shared our stories. We shared our facts. We collected our facts and worked together. But it wasn't just the marching in the street, which was huge because that got the court of opinion to pay attention. That got other residents to know that they weren't alone. So people were trying to downplay activism. Absolutely not. No, you marched to get attention. You marched to let people know there is a problem here and to let other people living in this know they're not alone. It's not in their head. It's not their imagination. This is for real. And so then you've got, in the meantime, we got advice from Aaron Brockovich and Bob Bocock and Lois Gibbs and the Center for Health, Environment, and Justice, CHEJ, who was giving us scientific information. Bob Bocock and Stephen Lester from CHEJ taught me pretty much every bit of science that comes out of my mouth. And I'm like, oh God, what is this? But we learn. You learn, and you learn what the terms are, and you learn so that way you can call them out on what they're, lying on. Now, you don't have to be an expert in everything because once you're working with other folks, like Nayera Sharif, the director of Flint Rising, democracy, the emergency manager law, environmental justice, racial justice, housing justice, all that Nayera has been doing that for 20 years. I didn't know any of this stuff. I was a music promoter, for God's sake. What did I know? But I could pick up science. That stuck in my brain a bit. And I can speak. I don't know if y'all noticed that. I can talk a lot. And I'm not afraid of anybody. Although I've been nervous before, with people like, like Gloria Steinem, and I didn't know how to talk. But here's the thing. We all got in where we fit in, basically. And we all have talents and skills. My background was in PR and marketing. So I'm like, okay. And my husband's a web designer. So we could do this. He's a graphic artist. So we can get these together. So we started making t-shirts. Don't drink the water. What are you fighting for? T-shirts. T-shirts with information. Door hangers. We started going door to door, hanging door hangers in Flint, letting people know, please get your water tested if you're having any symptoms. But also, it had the phone numbers and email addresses for all the elected officials who were in charge. Get a hold of them because you are their boss. Don't forget that. And so then we were encouraging people to get their water tested and all this stuff. And we were knocking on doors, picking up people's stories, going out and talking to folks. And again, I went to, the Miller Road mansions, which the wealthier part of town, because they were thinking it wasn't happening to them. And yes, security removed me many times. I'm polite. But I finally got through to a lady who her pool had been just destroyed repeatedly. The motor had been destroyed. And she spent so much money on it. Couldn't understand why. Heavy metals. They had sky high lead in their homes. And a lot of those mansions had like 3 or 4 service lines. There's one actually hanging up at the plumbers union that looks, and they call it the octopus because it actually was because of all the multiple bathrooms and, the sprinkler systems and stuff. They had 4 lead service lines wiggling off of their, off of the connection to their house, right? So going into their home. So, and again, we're all connected and the contaminants do float around. So getting them to realize no neighborhood's better or worse than others when it comes to heavy metals and contaminants going around. But we do have neighborhoods that are definitely worse because of the age of the home, the stagnation of the water. So when it comes to bacteria, like where I live, I'm on the west side and it takes 6, 7 days for the water to leave the water treatment plant and come around, going through all the broken stuff to get there. So there's not really chlorine left, just disinfection byproducts, which can cause cancer. And that's that bleach smell that burned my nose this morning. But going back to how I learned all this stuff, Google. Definitely talking to one another, reaching out, talking to experts. And then they told us it's got to be a multi-pronged approach. So in the streets, hit them loud, go do sit-ins, which we did. We did a Detroit to Flint march where we marched 70 miles in 7 days, going to all the cities that have been taken over by emergency management and were having problems. So we marched there and that was a big deal. And that got former Mayor Dan Walling to drink the water on TV that day, the day that we landed in Flint, to try to say, no, these people are just making a deal of it. Wrong, sir. And of course it was wrong. And that's when the state came out and said the people of Flint can relax. There's no widespread lead problem. This was July of 2015. Wrong. But of course they're going to cover it up. So, but the thing is we started realizing our power because we were forcing them to lie, right? We're forcing them to come out and make a statement. Of course they chose to lie. They didn't, you have to, they could have been honest with us, but geez. So that aside, we were marching, we were protesting, but we were also going in front of legislation. we actually, we had a hard time getting in front of our state rep, which at the time was Sheldon Neely. So we talked to Candace Machot and other people in his office to try to get to him and tell him what was going on. But when the cameras came, then he showed up. So there was that. But we were working with the activists in Detroit, and we actually put forth the Water as a Human Right bill package, talking about quality and cost and shutoffs and protections for people. So we've been pushing that since 2015 to get through our state legislature, which is run by Democrats now. Why is this not moving forward? We have a state rep, Stephanie Cheng, who is amazing, state senator. She's amazing. She's been with us since day one, and she's been pushing. This is her, her baby amongst all of us, because she's one of us, and that's amazing. So we were pushing for legislation, but we were also going to court and suing, and we were trying to push and filing complaints with the Attorney General's office to file criminal complaints, right? So we were doing all of these things. So when it comes to any kind of problem like this, you need to fight in the streets. Just basically the court of public opinion, get your neighbors together, march, have community meetings, have church meetings, things like that. And you get in front of folks that need to hear it, that may not be getting the right information. At the time, there was like 260 churches in Flint. We called and emailed and stopped by all of them so we could try to talk to their folks, talk to their congregation. And there was a group of pastors that actually would allow us in. Some said, no, it's too political. And I'm like, it's not political, it's public health, but okay. Here we go. So there we go. And so we have, we had great advice. We learned from Aaron Brockovich, who's still in touch to this day and amazing and helping people all over the place. Because unfortunately, we're not the only ones. Flint's not the only ones. So that are being poisoned. And so then, and Lois Gibbs, same as UCHEJ, they're helping to prevent this environmental injustice, environmental, destruction from happening. We're killing our planet, which then of course is hurting us, kind of how that works. So anyways, we marched in the street. We had community meetings. We had press conferences. We did our own press. We had to be our own media. But then we started getting the attention of international media and independent media, which is amazing because then they can say and do whatever they want. Oh, I'm getting just blasted by my own vehicle outside. Hey, it's sunny today, guys. I can tell you because I just got blinded. But okay, we're just going to sit over here then. Don't mind me. It's not my face that's important. It's the words. So, marching in the street, getting together as a community, having community meetings, ward meetings, talking to city council, going in front of city council, presenting evidence, getting it out there, keeping it on social media, sharing it out to the world, right? And people were horrified. Oh my God, look what's happening. And then we had to go to the ballot boxes because it was an election year and former Mayor Dan Walling was going along with what the state was saying and everything was fine. So we had to replace him. So we got in former Mayor Dr. Karen Weaver, who had promised to declare a state of emergency. And a month after getting into office, that's exactly what she did. And then that's when the floodgates broke. But by then we were also testing the water. We had started passing out water test bottles early in the summer of 2015. And then they weren't meeting the number of tests because they didn't want to test. So the state and city were cheating on the test and lying about it. The state was changing numbers around to hide these high lead levels, which people started having high lead in the testing in August of 2014. And we didn't know. But also in 2014, people were dying of Legionnaires and they didn't tell us. So we're finding all this stuff out. We're sick. We're injured. We're going through trauma, but we're in the streets. We're in legislature. We're in the media. We're in community, standing together, and we're at the ballot box. So we got a new mayor in who then declared the state of emergency. So then we had to be there for each other, knocking on doors, making sure everybody had the correct information. We had to organize to make sure everybody was staying safe, but then continuing to push for a change in laws. We had to push and push and push, but it was our pushing and our testing that the community did that proved there was a widespread lead problem and that there were people that were getting sick of bacteria. And then we were finding that they were covering stuff up through FOIAs. And we had Kurt Guyette, an investigative reporter from the ACLU of Michigan, come up and help us get the proof we needed. So then more and more experts started coming in to help us. And we had the answers and they helped us prove it. So at the end of the day, all these years, we have attorneys like NRDC, ACLU, our local attorneys, like Cynthia Lindsay has been one of my really good friends, but also has stood with us and made sure that when there were hearings, she was getting buses and van loads of residents down. She has been amazing. She listens to our story. She takes our information in, and she stood up for us. She is one of our class action attorneys, and she's from Michigan, which it's interesting that the Michigan attorneys are getting pushed down when they were here with us since 2015. But we fought in the courts, legislature, ballot boxes, streets, homes, city council, all of these things. So it wasn't just residents weren't doing anything. They were sitting back chewing on bad water. That never happened. We pushed and we still push. And like when former Governor Snyder got a gig, he was supposed to be teaching at Harvard about civility in politics. We had a huge outcry and we put a stop to that, right? And so people still care about Flint. They just need to hear our stories. We need to keep pushing, and new people as they come in, stand with us, because us old folks getting a little tired. But we have gone to Lansing, Detroit, Ann Arbor, outside of former Governor Snyder's home. We have gone to DC multiple times because these things have to happen. Okay. So even though we don't post everything and we haven't posted everything that Flint's done, it was not some, white savior or some knight on a white horse coming in to save us. We saved ourselves. And yes, we had to get help and support from some amazing attorneys. And then, we got some experts in it, bit us in the backside, but we got testing that we needed. We've got information that we needed. So this is the thing. We are superior. I'm wearing a shirt, not that you're going to be able to see it, but it says Wonder Woman on it. And I'm not saying it because I'm egotistical. I'm like, I got up today and I survived. You got up today and you survived. You didn't give up. Don't. And there are so many days that we feel helpless, powerless, sore, sick, tired, and all of these things. But right here and right here and right here, we are all superheroes. Okay? We push back every day by staying, by surviving, and by not giving up. We learned the law because we had to. Did we have PhDs? No. Did we have any of this experience? No, I certainly didn't. But you learn when your life is on the line. And you learn so you can catch them in lies and call them out. Call them out on your social media because every single one of our voices matter. And everything that these other communities that are going through these environmental disasters and these poisonings and all this stuff, they're learning from us. We are an amazing example. So when we sued with the Natural Resources Defense Council and ACLU of Michigan to get our pipes replaced, we sued to force the city and state to pay for it and to come into compliance with the Safe Drinking Water Act and Lead and Copper Rule, which we're not yet because the pipes aren't out. When we started working on this lawsuit to push the EPA, to petition them, to push for this in 2015, and then to file in January of 2016, we made history when we won because no city had sued a government and made them pay to replace all the pipes at no cost to us. There's still millions of dollars sitting there. So don't let the city say we don't have money and act like it's broke, because the wind funds that were signed off by President Obama December of 2016 before he left office, the wind funds are still there. I think it was like 17 million left, plenty to finish the work. And actually right now, the restoration crews are pushing for overtime because they've got the supplies and they've got the ability to get asphalt on Sundays to be able to work 7 days a week to get the work done. The city has yet to approve overtime for them. And they, kind of saying it's a state thing. So, okay, let's push the city and state to pay these folks overtime to get the work done faster. Otherwise, it's going to drag into another year, which we don't need or deserve. So there are things that your voice, your story, your experience can do to move this along. Because if we all stand together, we share our stories together, we can make change. And again, the media has made it to where there's a couple of doctors that came in and saved us all. That's not the way that it is. First of all, the doctors, Dr. Mark Edwards and Dr. Mona wouldn't have had the information they did if it wasn't for us. And Dr. Mona's even said that before. It wouldn't be without us. And our stories, our testing, us doing all the work, they were able to say, yeah, look at these records. This is what this is. We collected those 300 tests that proved that there was a widespread lead problem. We did the mapping. We did all this stuff and pushed. So if you're in a situation like this, you cannot expect somebody to come in and save you, because then they take control of your narrative and they're going to be in control of your recovery. And that did happen to us. We learned, okay? But Flint, we learn, we go first, and we learn lessons, right? But we do this so we can teach others, because we are amazing. We are incredible. And you'll hear me say this all the time. Yeah, my city's got a mess going because, we got a mess as leadership. And it's intentional, right? Like if they run us out, if they force us to give up, then they can empty out and do whatever they want with this town. They can gentrify it like they have been, right? So don't let them have their way. Let that inner teenager or that inner toddler in you that's like, no, you want me to do this and it's not what I want to do. I'm not going to move. I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to shut up. I'm not going to be quiet. So here we go, right? So here we are. Once again, it's not stopped. You know, we did put a stop to us having to go into the KWA and having, or the Genesee County Drain Commission water and having it blended with the Flint River. We stopped that. Regular people, all of us normies, used our voices and learned and spoke up and pushed from all directions, and we got that stopped. They haven't been able to bankrupt Flint, and now it seems like they don't want to touch us. But it's funny because then the county's trying to absorb us because the county needs our money, right? They need our money. They need our tax base and all that stuff. So we pushing on that. We don't want this. So then they had to come in with the blending. Well, we're showing that it's messing up everything. So we need more voices to push back on this because it's not necessary. And they're trying to say it is, and it's not. I believe we're in violation. Now I got to double check this. Somebody wants to double check this for me with Lead and Copper Rules, Safe Drinking Water Act, and the EPA's emergency administrative order that came out January of 2016. So if somebody wants to check that to see if we're in violation for not having a director of public works or anybody that's licensed to, be over our water treatment plant, they want to look into that. So we need to be reaching out to our attorneys that we trust and getting some answers there, or just looking up a law. We actually help change. We, as a community, help speak and change and have input on Michigan's lead and copper rule. And it's the strongest in the country. Still not good enough, but it's a start. It's a major start, right? And so now as a country, we're all joining together with all these other communities to when the new law or when the new rule is introduced here coming up in the next couple months, we're going to have input on it and we're going to have a say. And I'm going to expect you guys to help me collect statements and what needs to be changed and improved upon this law, right? Because we have a say and our say matters and they have to take it in. The, Eagle with their rulemaking, they say they don't make rules, but they do. All of these things, the information is available to us. We just have to unite and talk to each other. So 810 News Media Group has been amazing, bringing, Flint voices forward to share information about what's going on in Flint to Flint residents and to the rest of the world. So that way we can all unite and learn from each other. Because again, the more people in a community and then the more communities that are saying the same thing, like, we want clean water and also this law needs to be changed, the harder it is for them to duck us. The harder it is for them to say, oh, they're just poor black and brown folks who want something for free, or they're just poor bored housewives and white trash this and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Well, we know better than you, and we've been forcing your change. And yes, it is a big, huge thing. We're fighting the government. We're technically fighting the corporations that run our government at this point in time. So that's why when people taking gifts and bribes and not disclosing it, and then approving $72 million contracts because they got money or a lawnmower or whatever from this company, call them out, people, because our voices matter and they are so powerful. One voice is powerful. Your voice is powerful. Your story matters. But you get us all together, that's scary. And so we all are in this together. We are all impacted together. Even if you moved out of Flint, doesn't matter. You've got information. You've got stories. You have a law that, that you have law. There are laws that still cover you. We just have to stand together and we have to fight. And, we've done this with Detroit, coming together with Flint, and then also Detroit and Flint, then going to Benton Harbor to help, and then trying to help Highland Park in their disaster. Because again, you run government like a business, you're destroying basically everything, all the protections that are there for the people, which again, they don't care about. But you get in the way of that, you be annoying, you be stubborn and say, no, what you're doing is wrong, and continue to carry that out. Now, don't do anything to get yourself arrested. Don't be burning up your own city just because, like in Flint, we don't have a lot, right? Don't do anything that's going to get you arrested and get your voice silenced. That's all I'm saying. You make your voice heard, you make your statement heard, you stand up for what's right for you and your family, and you do what you're comfortable with, but don't do anything that's going to cause yourself harm, because we need you and your voice. And so, hey, miracle worker time. You should see me. I'm in here just a mess. So I told him not to tell you, Mickey, what a weird thing that I've done. Because every time the light changed, I saw I'm a ghost in half of it, which is funny. We good. So we're going to go. Hey, Trevor, how's it going?
Another day.
I'm gonna let y'all go unless you guys want to say some stuff about how it. Look. We share in this platform. Get where you at? With these amazing folks right here Battery saver's on. Oh, I'm going to go ahead and kill a computer. So we're going to take off. Please like, share, subscribe to 810 News Media Group, and share this with your community, share this with your friends. And absolutely, don't forget that you mean more than these government regulations, and you have the power to stop this. Done.